Vapor intrusion is the process by which chemicals that have gotten into either the soil or the groundwater, so anywhere in the subsurface, migrate up into a building and to where people might be able to breathe them.
Vapor intrusion is caused by a group of chemicals called volatile chemicals. They're chemicals that can vaporize, and they prefer to be in vapor rather than in water or attached to soil.
Vapor intrusion is potentially dangerous. There are certain chemicals that readily volatilize from the groundwater or the soil, and then those are easily transported into a building, and some of those are carcinogenic.
The volatile chemicals that are driving a lot of sites these days include chemicals that are related to dry cleaning and vapor degreasing. Those would be things that are called trichloroethylene or TCE, perchloroethylene, or PERC. And in gasoline stations also have volatile chemicals. The toxicity of those chemicals can vary. They can be carcinogenic.
It's something that has kind of come to light more lately. Vapor intrusion is one of the things in our business that's actually changing fairly quickly. I think that's evidenced by the fact that the U.S. government and a number of states have released brand new guidance on how to assess and deal with vapor intrusion over the last year or two. And these days it's really driving a lot of our projects as we've become more aware of how often it's occurring and the potential consequences that can arise from it.
From a business perspective, vapor intrusion has really entered into a lot of our clients' lives. We do work with clients that are buying and selling properties. It is absolutely driving a number of issues relative to transactions.
Vapor intrusion is not hard to detect, but you have to use specific techniques to be able to assess it, and those techniques vary by state or by region depending on what that regulatory body actually wants you to be doing. So you can either take vapor samples from below the building and try and find out what could potentially be coming into a building, or you can take vapor samples from inside of a building and find out what people would actually be breathing. There is no kind of one-size-fits-all approach to it. There's some nuance to taking and interpreting vapor data. We have a really good grasp on the science behind it and can work within the regulatory regime wherever we are.
Previously, when we would look at potential vapor intrusion issues, we worked off an algorithm and a model that had been developed, the Johnson-Ettinger model. So a lot of different factors that could play into if you had the chemical, for example, trichloroethylene in soil, they would back calculate what the number could be in that soil, how high of concentration that could be before it would cause a vapor intrusion into the home. So if we looked at data from soil or groundwater and it was below that threshold criterion, we would say vapor intrusion is not an issue at this site. More recently, they found problems with the Johnson-Ettinger model that didn't accurately predict what was happening. Now we're focused more, because of where the regulations have gone, where the science has gone, to collect vapor samples, subslab samples, and sometimes indoor air samples to better characterize what's actually happening with this phenomenon of vapor intrusion.
We're working on a project that's a large former Air Force base in Salina, Kansas. They use a lot of the solvent trichloroethylene, and so they have a number of areas where they have trichloroethylene in the groundwater or the soil. It has a propensity to volatilize into buildings. We've tested about 40 industrial buildings and a number of residential buildings for both the air beneath the slab, we call that subslab vapor, and then the air within the buildings to determine what people are actually breathing. So it's a fairly widespread investigation of how this could be affecting the people that live and work above these groundwater plumes. Here at Dragun, we like to be sure about our findings before we take the step of spending a lot of money on a mitigation system. And we like to make sure that that detection is real, make sure that we know that it's coming from vapor intrusion and not from potentially something within the building that the people might be using. So I think that we like to take a little more sure approach before we have someone committing a lot of money to a mitigation system. Here at Dragun, we have a really strong grasp on the science behind the mechanisms and the phenomenons that vapor intrusion is based on. And so using that, we're able to really take a solid position on whether or not you need to be assessing vapor intrusion, potentially stay out of the process altogether. We like to say don't get on the on-ramp rather than trying to look for an off-ramp. And when we do take a position, we're able to justify that based on the science and most often can come to a solution quickly.